Hi everyone, William here with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series, and the last video I did was on Pavel Milyukov's famous speech to the Duma in November 1916, November 14th, in which he asked the question of the government, is this stupidity or is it treason? I should say he asked it to the government. And it had a huge impact at that time because it expressed the views of so many people, and among the people whose views were expressed were Dmitri and Felix and also Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich. So I talked yesterday about it having a real impact on the conspiracy then to assassinate Rasputin, because it talked about the Rasputin Cabal without actually ever mentioning Nicholas or Alexandra or Rasputin. All right, so we're still in the long diary entry of the 17th of November, 1917, and we start off with Dmitri has attached some information from Tabriz, a big city that I'm not quite sure at that time if it was part of Azerbaijan and the Russian Empire or part of Iran, right on the border there, I think. And there was information that had come in there from the staff of the army about the people's commissars. And I did not attach that to my translation. I'm working from a translation that I did many years ago, and I see I didn't attach that. So instead of going to the microfilm and looking for that, I have to admit I didn't do that. So I'm just going to skip that. But we do have, there was one thing that Dmitri attached to the diaries that I also attached to my translation and actually translated, and that was a newspaper article from the Baku newspaper Caspia. So some of what we do today will be from that attachment. From Dmitri clipped the article and placed it in his diaries. Okay, so here we go. We start out with Dmitri himself. I am attaching here a clipping from the newspaper. It's an article from the editorial staff and written blank. It expresses so well everything that is in my heart that no commentary is needed. It may well be that in subsequent issues of Caspia, we will not see such articles because the city and consequently the editorial office will be in the hands of the Bolsheviks. Apparently, that's where things are going, because rumors are already circulating that the rails have been broken at Tiflis and that Baku is completely in the hands of the Maximalists. It's very typical that Caspia, at the beginning of the revolution, tried to place as many abusive articles as possible addressed to the old regime and positive ones to the new. Okay, so here's the clipping, and keep in mind as you hear this that Dmitri says it expresses so well everything that is in my heart that no commentary is needed. And we're just going to do a little bit the opening paragraphs of this article, or editorial rather, and then discuss it. Okay, Baku, 4th November. What did not work for the Stürmers, Sukhomlinovs, Myasayedovs, and their secretive and venomous helpers and inspirers, what the court cabal surrounding the young Tsaritsa, in which the Germans had placed their hopes, could not do in 2.5 years of war, has been successfully completed in the course of the last 8 months by the combined efforts of the free citizens of the new Russian Democratic Republic. Now there can no longer be either doubt or hope. We have lost the war. We have shamefully lost the struggle for freedom and the happiness of the world against the hegemony of an iron fist. We have shamefully betrayed the memory of the fighters who laid down their heads on the fields of battle or the fate of the fatherland was decided. Shamefully betrayed the noble and honorable allies who, over the course of many months, accomplished superhuman feats in order to give Russia a chance to right herself and emerge from the revolutionary crisis. Okay, so this is very interesting in light of the fact that Dmitri says that that this is exactly what he thinks, more or less. Okay, so let's start with Baku and what was going on in Baku. So he's going on rumors. A while back, there were actually visitors from Baku, and people, Russians in Tehran were going there for, and British in Tehran were going to Baku for their holidays, and people from Baku coming to Tehran. And that now seems to have stopped. At least Dmitri hasn't met anyone coming or arriving from Baku lately. So he's going on rumors, pretty much. So what was going on there? Well, you had a man in Baku called Stepan Shaumian, who was an Armenian Bolshevik, one of these who was a Bolshevik from his youth, basically, and people called him the Lenin of the Caucasus. He was, at that time, the Commissar Extraordinaire for the Caucasus and chairman of the Baku Council of People's Commissars. So this may have been who is referred to in this Tabriz information with respect to the People's Commissars. I'm not sure about that. But he was, what you had there in Baku was you had Bolsheviks, Mensheviks, and the left wing of the socialist revolutionaries, plus Armenian revolutionaries, who were basically governing the city, who were in charge of Baku. But the Bolsheviks were consolidating their power, so Dmitri is right. The things are simply going over to the extremists, to the Bolsheviks, and so newspapers like Caspia, which was a good, moderate, liberal newspaper, who knows how much longer they were going to be in operation. He refers to the rumors that the rails have been broken at Tiflis, at, I don't know how you pronounce it, Tbilisi, I don't know, the capital of Georgia. And he you know, the rumors are essentially correct. The railroads were being attacked, and the revolution that started out strictly in Petrograd and then spread to other parts of Russia had now spread throughout the empire to Central Asia. And so, you know, Dmitri's assessment is a good one. As usual, he is a very keen observer of things. All right, so let's talk about the novel. Let's talk about the editorial itself. What did not work for the Stürmers, Sukhomlinovs, Myasayedovs, and the court cabal surrounding the young Tsaritsa? Well, they wanted, the Tsaritsa did not want, but they were in favor of a separate peace, is the idea here, and that's what they were working toward. Some people thought they were working with the Germans. Some people thought they were just, working right into the Germans' hands, what the Germans wanted. But Rasputin, when you talk about the court cabal surrounding the young Tsaritsa, you're also talking about the Rasputin cabal. Stürmer was the Boris Stürmer was the prime minister at that time. He was largely regarded as having been more or less appointed by Rasputin through the empress who talked Nicholas into it. He was the prime minister, at that time in November 1916. From January 1916 to November 1916, he was the prime minister. And Sukhomlinov, is talked about in the famous speech, the stupidity or treason speech. He was, again, part of the Rasputin cabal. He was the Minister of War from 1909 to June 1915. He was arrested in 1916 for high treason, and he got a 2-year sentence. The last person who's referred to, Sergei Myasayedov, he was a translator for the general staff, or for the staff on one of the fronts, and not so much a big fish, but he was grabbed and executed in 1916 for treason, for being in contact with the Germans. I don't know if it was necessarily true. It might have been a bit of a witch hunt in relation to Myasayedov. I don't know. But anyway, this apparently is the way Dmitri saw things. He saw Stürmer, Sukhomlinov, Myasayedov, all as part of this cabal that wanted a separate peace with Germany, which was something that he absolutely did not want, and the Progressive Bloc didn't want. And it's interesting that he doesn't say anything. The editorialist mentions the court cabal surrounding the young Tsaritsa, and Dmitri does not. When he says this doesn't require any commentary, but when he does comment on this editorial, he's not going to single that out and say, oh, well, they were wrong about her. I think he knew she wasn't involved with the Germans, so yeah, I don't know. Anyway, he will later be more, later in his diaries, when people talk in disparaging ways about the Empress, he will come to her defense. But in this instance, he's letting this pass. Okay, so what do we have next? This is an interesting reference to the free citizens of the new Russian Democratic Republic. So these are the people who are to blame. They have accomplished in 8 months what the court cabal and the Stürmer, Sukhomlinovs, and Myasayedovs didn't manage to do in 2.5 years. So who are we talking about? I guess the provisional government. I mean, Dmitri does point out the hypocrisy of this, that until recently, the Caspia was aiming all of its outrage at the old regime, at the government that had been toppled. Now that the Bolsheviks have taken over, it's aiming its criticism at the failed provisional government, I guess. So that's an interesting way of putting it, the free citizens of the new Russian Democratic Republic. Yeah, a republic was declared, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see, interesting, the reference to the hegemony of an iron fist, meaning Germany. We have shamefully lost the struggle for freedom and the happiness of the world against the hegemony of an iron fist. So, okay, that would have been more relevant, with respect to the Second World War. But, yeah, again, it's very interesting because there would be a minority, but a fairly large section of the emigre community outside of Russia who would become pro-German, despite the fact that Germany and the Central Powers had basically laid Russia to waste in the sense of weakening it so that there was a revolution. So, Dmitri himself was never pro-German. So I guess, as far as he's concerned right now, yes, the hegemony of an iron fist is an apt thing to say about Germany. On the other hand, as you've seen in previous diary entries, he considered Britain to be the biggest threat to Russia going forward. And he very much resented what he considered to be the sort of arrogant triumphalist attitude on the part of the Germans. But in this instance, he's endorsing what the editorialist has to say. I don't know who the editorialist was, which is that Germany represented the hegemony of an iron fist, and that the noble, that the Allies were noble and honorable. So that's an interesting development. Yeah, so the idea of shame. We've talked in the past about how that is very often a feature of Dmitri's own writing. He's sort of oriented toward guilt and shame. And, maybe that was a feature of Russian culture overall at that time. I don't know. I'd love to talk to some Russians about that. It's not really something that you have in American culture. I'm afraid we should have more of it. But this editorialist, it's shameful that we've betrayed the memory of the fighters who died. It's shameful that we're betraying our allies. And the fact of the matter is that later on, Dmitri himself and many others would shift away from that attitude toward, we sacrificed hundreds and thousands of men, and now the Allies are treating us like dirt, meaning the White Russians. But we'll get into that. So what do we have next time? We're going to do more of this. We're going to finish it up and then have Dmitri's comments on it. So it continues to be fascinating, and I hope you'll come back for that. All right, bye.